$9 million, secret emails, anonymous accounts, and a Hollywood feud that just turned into a courtroom thriller. Newly unsealed texts claim Justin Baldoni tried to secretly smear Blake Lively, and the receipts are jaw-dropping. The turning point came when a federal judge unsealed more than 60 exhibits that had been locked away during discovery. These weren't just random filings. They were text messages, confidential emails, and detailed invoices connected to the feud between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. The documents revealed a behind-the-scenes war that went far beyond creative disagreements on set. At the heart of it, Blake's legal team argued, was an orchestrated campaign designed to quietly undermine her reputation. Lawyers pointed to messages where publicists openly discussed untraceable tactics, the kind of strategies usually reserved for political black ops, not Hollywood co-stars. One email from August 2024 showed Baldoni's own publicist personally introducing a so-called hired gun to Wayfarer Studios' leadership team. Other texts mentioned high-priced quotes for social media manipulation, with explicit notes that the work would need to be invisible to the public. For fans, this wasn't just shocking, it was almost surreal. Could one of Hollywood's most beloved actresses really have been targeted in a covert smear operation by her own co-star's team? Blake's lawyers believe the answer is yes. Baldoni's side, however, maintains that these documents have been misinterpreted, insisting the online backlash against Lively was already massive and organic, fueled by fans who genuinely disliked her approach to the movie. But one thing is clear. When those sealed messages hit daylight, the story stopped being just about a movie feud. It became a full-scale courtroom drama, one that left Hollywood insiders whispering, if this is what's in the exhibits, what else hasn't come out yet? At the center of the unsealed files was one name that kept surfacing, Jed Wallace. On paper, he was just a social media consultant, but in the Hollywood underworld of image management, his description was far more sinister. In fact, Wallace once described himself on LinkedIn as a hired gun with a proprietary formula for defining artists and trends. Translation: he wasn't there to play nice, he was there to win. Court invoices showed that Baldoni's production company, Wayfarer Studios, signed Wallace to a $30,000 per month contract for 3 straight months, August, September, and October of 2024. That's $90,000 in total, paid out during the peak of tensions between Baldoni and Lively. Emails reveal that Baldoni's publicist, Melissa Nathan, personally facilitated the connection. She wrote enthusiastically to Jamie Heath, Baldoni's business partner, introducing Wallace as a proven fixer who had worked on monumental projects globally. Wallace himself replied that his team would work in lockstep with Nathan's PR firm, but still be engaged separately. That phrasing alone raised suspicions. Why would a contractor emphasize independence unless the work needed to be deniable? And then came the most alarming part. Texts mentioning that the services offered were untraceable. According to Blake's attorneys, this was the smoking gun, that Wallace wasn't just monitoring online chatter, but allegedly creating anonymous accounts to push pro-Baldoni narratives, argue with critics, and shape the conversation in his favor. For Blake's side, the narrative was obvious. Here was a paid professional secretly pulling strings online, turning the internet into a battlefield where her reputation was the target. For Baldoni's team, however, it was framed differently. They argued Wallace was simply monitoring the storm, not creating it, and that the flood of negativity against Lively was already coming from real people, real fans, and real criticism. But the fact remained, $90,000 had been spent. A consultant with a reputation for behind-the-scenes wins had been hired, and the word untraceable appeared in black and white. It begged the question, was this the early stage of a carefully planned smear operation, or just a PR team throwing money at a wildfire they couldn't control? If the $90,000 for a hired gun sounded extreme, what came next looked almost unthinkable. In one text message from August 2024, Jamie Heath, Justin Baldoni's business partner at Wayfarer Studios, confided to a friend named Andy that the situation had spiraled so far out of control, he had been forced to bring in a full-scale crisis communications team. His words were blunt. "I've hired a crisis management team, costing $9 million. Also, our PR team just have to manage every landmine so it doesn't go off, and there's just so much to it. $9 million. That's not a typo. That's the kind of budget entire political campaigns run on, more than most independent films cost to make. For a single feud between 2 Hollywood stars, it sounded absurd, almost impossible to believe. Was Heath exaggerating out of stress? Or was Wayfarer Studios really pouring that kind of money into silencing a PR nightmare? Sources close to Baldoni's team later tried to downplay the number, claiming the real spend was far smaller, around $15,000 for the services of TAG, the public relations firm. But even if Heath inflated the number, the intent behind the message was crystal clear. Baldoni's camp saw the feud with Blake not as minor drama, but as an existential threat, something so dangerous to their movie and reputation that every possible landmine had to be contained. And what made it all the more chilling was the language surrounding those plans. Court filings mention phrases like social and digital mitigation, execute without fingerprints, and removing harmful links from Google. The mission wasn't just to manage bad press, it was to erase it, reshape it, and replace it with an alternate narrative. One internal email even laid out strategies to leverage Discord, Reddit, TikTok, and YouTube, infiltrating online spaces where fan conversations were happening in real time. The goal? To tilt the story in Baldoni's favor, while making it look natural, grassroots, even accidental. Whether the price tag was $9 million or $90,000, the message was the same. Justin Baldoni's team wasn't just playing defense. They were running a full-blown information war. According to Blake's legal team, texts between Baldoni's camp reveal a chilling plan. In one exchange, publicist Melissa Nathan described an option costing $25,000 a month for creation of social fan engagement. Translation: deploying anonymous accounts to argue with critics, push pro-Baldoni content, and drown out negative voices online. And the kicker, she emphasized, all of this will be most importantly untraceable. For Lively's attorneys, this was the smoking gun, proof that her co-star's team plotted a stealth smear campaign to twist public perception. Of course, Baldoni's camp tells a different story. Jed Wallace insists he never ran fake accounts, never attacked Blake Lively, and was only hired to monitor chatter. In fact, he's now suing Lively for defamation, arguing she spread lies about him and his company. His lawyer put it bluntly, Mr. Wallace has never even met Blake, ever. He has not engaged in a smear campaign at any point in time. Supporters of Baldoni argue the backlash against Lively wasn't manufactured at all. It was organic criticism from fans who genuinely disliked how she handled the film's promotion. But then came the group chats that made the scandal even messier. Inside the filings were texts between Baldoni's PR staff that mocked Lively's choices. One employee, Katie Case, ridiculed her decision to market It Ends With Us, a story rooted in domestic violence, as though it were a lighthearted rom-com. Someone has to tell them to grow up, she wrote. They promoted a movie about domestic violence as if it was a silly rom-com. What did they expect? Case even shared Lively's infamous Instagram post urging fans to wear your florals to the theater. Her verdict? Like, come on, we had nothing to do with that. Others chimed in, insisting that the wave of TikToks slamming Lively's promo was real, not bot-driven. This is crazy, one said. She doesn't have a good reputation. All of this is organic. But there was still one more curveball, one that dragged a superstar into the feud. In one alarming email, Baldoni's PR team admitted they feared Lively might activate the Taylor Swift fan base. Yes, Taylor Swift's name was invoked as a potential threat, with Case warning that Swifties could devastate Baldoni's image if Lively turned them against him. To counter that risk, the PR budget was allegedly raised to $30,000 per month. Think about that. An entire Hollywood crisis team adjusting its strategy around the possibility of Blake calling in Taylor Swift's army of fans. Behind closed doors, Baldoni himself sounded exhausted. In a January group chat with executives, he described feeling held hostage by Lively, trying to find my balance of captaining a ship while it's being held hostage, he wrote. He admitted he feared she could use anything against him and confessed that working with her was scary, but he ended with a cryptic note, "Yet I know I have protection." Protection from what, or from whom? That line left even insiders unsettled. Both sides are now locked in legal combat. Lively insists there's overwhelming evidence of a smear campaign. Baldoni insists it's fiction. Wallace says he was dragged into this unfairly. And with defamation suits flying in both directions, the case is less about one movie and more about reputations, legacies, and careers. So here we are, $90,000 in contracts, $9 million in crisis teams, untraceable plans, and leaked texts mocking Blake Lively's every move. One side calls it proof of a smear campaign. The other calls it pure coincidence and organic fan outrage. The only certainty? This Hollywood war is far from over. And as the courtroom battles unfold, one question lingers. Was this truly a coordinated smear campaign? Or just a disastrous PR nightmare spiraling out of control?